What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. How's everyone doing for a Wednesday? How's everyone doing? Yesterday, if you guys follow me on social media, I made soup. I made, I put chicken in there, I put rice and potatoes, and then how I have it make liquid, I didn't put water, I put chicken stock and chicken broth that you can get from the chicken, but mine it was just chicken. Unless you get it like the whole chicken, but mine was just chicken thigh. So I got the store-bought chicken broth and chicken stock. I put it in there. Wait till it gets hot, and then I put the chicken. Wait for like around 20 minutes so it's like fully cooked. And how I checked is, of course, get the thermometer, make sure that's fully cooked, and then after that I put the potatoes, and then lastly I put is what did he say, the rice. And of course I seasoned the chicken. I did that before I put the chicken in the soup. And then whatever I had left over, because I season it in a glass bowl, and I put the chicken in there and move it around, and then I put it in the pot. Once I was done with that glass bowl, I put it in the soup, so the rest of the remaining will be there and I'm not wasting that. So, yeah. My mom likes it. That's good. And my dad likes it too. This is my second attempt of making soup. My first time, of course, it wasn't good, and I think it was because one, I didn't know what I was doing, and two, it was still my first time making chicken, and now I know how to make chicken. I make chicken a lot. I used to make salmon, but now I'm tired of salmon. Maybe I'll get back to it. If you guys know any good fish to eat, you can always put it in the comments, because I would like to always know what you guys eat, if that makes sense. Where can I put this? I'll just put it here. Wait. Huh? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um. Okay, that's good. How's everyone doing? We're gonna just be today just reacting to 90 Day Fiance little short videos. Okay, the quality is good because I saw it go yellow, and that means it was probably going to be laggy. And if I talk, it would just be like, hey, but, hey. So I was waiting for that to get better. I was going to play a game because that's how every live stream is. And sometimes live people that live stream, of course, if something happens and you just don't go live and then you just end up talking to the camera, then that's fine. I was gonna play a game, and the game was gonna be Fable. And I do have an Xbox, but I think it's time for that to retire and get a new one. I said last stream, guys, what is a good one to get? A PlayStation or an Xbox? I grew up with both, but which one do you guys suggest me getting? Because and I have to get a new one because I had that one since I was a teenager. So a whole decade with that one. And I did the chords, but I think it's done because it won't even turn on. So that is to be retired. And I know there's two new ones that probably came out, well, no, not last year. I think 2 years ago, the Xbox and the PlayStation 5. But which one is good to get? Because if say the PlayStation has the same games as the Xbox, then that's fine. But then if there's a game that I really want to play, maybe I'll just get it on Steam. You know, like if there's a lot of good games on the Xbox, then I'm gonna get only the Xbox. Cause why would I just get, say, like, if I get the Xbox, but then all the games I want to get is the PlayStation video games, then I would just get the PlayStation and then play some, buy some games on the Steam, so then I'm not just getting um this one console and then I don't even use it because all the games I want to use is in the other console. Because The Last of Us, if I ever want to play that on that console, it's only on PlayStation. It doesn't go in Xbox. So you see what I'm saying? Like, I want to get games that are only for one particular console and has all games that I would most likely enjoy. Like, okay, yeah, I like The Last of Us, but if say I get the Xbox, then I will just buy The Last of Us the second part on Steam. And I am fine with that if I do that. But I don't know which one is good to get. Like, guys, I like the Plague Tale. That was on Xbox because I remember playing the first game on my Xbox that I'm looking at over there, and it is so old. It needs to retire. It's been through a lot, and it's so old because I remember when I used to use that, and that's from when I was a teenager. The Xbox controller would take years to turn on, and then it would die like really fast, and then I would have to charge it because we had a wire. And then the next day, because it was fully charged, the next day it would die again. So it was time for that to go and get me a new one, but I just don't know which one is good to get. I don't know if you guys just heard that. That was my hip that just cracked. Let's see if I can. No. Okay. um, what are you guys doing for the weekend? Any plans for the weekend, guys? My birthday's coming up. Okay, we're in March, April, May, June. In 3 months. My birthday's coming up in 3 months. You guys can give suggestions on what I should do because I don't know what I want to do. And no, I don't. Oh my god, I'm having a hiccup. Oh, that was. On my birthdays, I don't really have parties. You know, like some people have a lot of people come for their birthday and have huge people come over and have birthday party and everyone's laughing and I I don't know. I don't really want that. I think the one time I actually did was when I was a teenager one time for my birthday. But other than that, I don't want a birthday that's a big party. I always have it small. One birthday, yeah, well, the way I say, yeah. Last year, my birthday, I had an afternoon tea, and you guys saw me post it, which was a couple days later, because I don't post in real time. This is real time because I'm live, but when I'm celebrating, you think I'm gonna be like, "Hey guys, I'm celebrating my birthday." I don't know how people do that. I can't do that. Oh my god. Hold up, guys. Hold up. Hold up. Okay, I was just looking at something. Oh darn it. Reaction. What is this? Oh, it tells me who's. So interesting. Okay, I got distracted. Okay, we're gonna be reacting to Emma from 90 Day Fiance, the newest 90 Day Fiance season. Okay, let's get on with it. Because, yeah, guys, I would like to play video games, of course, but I don't want to continue on playing on Steam. I want to get a console and connect it. But I also need to get a capture card because I noticed. Yeah, I have a capture card here, but I need another one so I can hook it up and then it will connect. And but I don't think that one's gonna connect to anything because it's so old, my Xbox over there. So time for a new one. I don't know when that will be. Okay, let's react to this, guys.
Instagram, you posted that you used to make your own wigs. Can you tell me how?
I did. Wait, I just posted that last night. That's so fast.
And she's like, "How do you know?"
I'm keeping up with the 90-day.
Yes, that's so fast.
How was why? Can you tell me a little bit about that? I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, so I used to make my own. Well, I've been wearing wigs for about 10 years now, so it's been a while. And then when I first, I've always had this venture into fake hair. I've worn extensions before, I've worn weaves before. And when I first started wearing wigs, I actually was experimenting with making them. They're very expensive. So
I wonder
was
how
like,
much.
maybe I can do
200?
this myself at like a cheaper price. And yeah, I started making my own wigs for a little bit. I don't do it anymore because it's very time consuming.
I'm
but
gonna
if you
Google
need a
it.
wig, I know how to make it.
And I saw on your Instagram you posted that you used to make your own wigs. Can you tell me how?
I did. Wait, I just posted that last night. That's so fast.
I'm keeping up with the 90-day cast.
Yes, that's so fast.
Jeez, they can go around $1,000 wigs. Are you kidding me?
Well, I've been wearing wigs
And
for
then
about
imagine
10
you
years
get it
now,
and
so
it's
been a
that
while.
much, and then it's not
And then
even
when I
good
first,
quality.
I've always had this
Oh
venture into fake hair.
man, that would not be good. Okay. Oh, let's see this. This looks
I'm about to show you
interesting.
something that makes me furious.
Okay, what is this?
Patrick Agnew. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology and I am a diagnosed sociopath. This is
Oh, you guys can't even see. There we go. Hold up. There we go.
everything I'm authorized to tell you. People like to believe
Oh God, have you heard about that guy's story?
are one-dimensional serial killers because in a way, if every sociopath looks like that, then sociopaths would be easy to spot. You won't have to worry whether you're married to one or living next door to one or having birthed one. When the truth is, most sociopaths resemble normal people. It's a really complex and layered question because the term sociopath is no longer used clinically. But if you're looking at it through that lens, that the classic sociopath is someone who struggles to understand the learned social emotions. So everyone has like a sort of hardwired set of emotions. These are the inherent emotions: happiness, sadness, etc.
Oh, so they have emotion.
Set of emotions that are learned. These are things like empathy, compassion, shame, remorse. We are taught these things mostly through modeling by caregivers. Sociopaths struggle to learn those emotions. There's been a lot of talk about the sociopathic mask and how sociopaths mask in order to charm and commit harm, when in reality, we mask for the same reasons that everyone else masks. It's easier to get through life if you are acting like everyone else does.
Wow.
I am masking right now. If I wasn't, I would have a much flatter affect.
What?
I wouldn't be as friendly perceiving, which isn't to say that I would be mean or that I would want to harm you or anyone in this studio, but I would probably be blinking less. I wouldn't be as engaging. But again, I think this is very relatable.
Childhood. So it happens in childhood impulse. Oh.
I was very problematic for teachers in elementary school in particular, because whereas at home I worked pretty hard to fly under the radar and not cause any problems, I didn't do that so much at school. I got in trouble a lot. as a child, I felt this emotional claustrophobia. And the only way that I was able to neutralize that claustrophobia was to act out in a way that was destructive. I don't know why. I just knew, do this and you'll feel better. When I was in elementary school in San Francisco,
Bay
there was
Area.
a little girl that I was friends with, and I I remember the day that I
I just had to
attacked
say
this
that.
child. I had been feeling tremendous pressure. And on this particular day, I had been engaging in small acts of deviance in order to sort of neutralize the pressure, and it hadn't been working. And there was a child who was impulse to hurt her.
Oh, darn it.
And so I grabbed a pencil out of my backpack and I stabbed her with it. And I knew that it was wrong, but again, I understood this intellectually, not emotionally. But what was the most troublesome for me was when I stabbed this child, not only did the pressure I was experiencing at the
As
time
a
go
child,
away,
she
but
did
it was
this.
replaced by a type of euphoria. It was almost like being high. I did it, and then I walked away, and I walked home, and it just felt so good. But
What?
it wasn't the harming of another child that felt good. It was the euphoria that it elicited. That sounds crazy in the sense that harming someone else made me feel good. But it wasn't the act of harming another child. It was the act of doing something very destructive. This kid was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I grew up just outside of San Francisco, and my upbringing was really normal, although I hate to use that word. I did, however, grow up during a time where we hardly had words for anxiety and depression, much less sociopathy. My parents did the best they could, but they weren't equipped to deal with a child like me. And I would imagine most parents aren't. And my father was in the music business, so he was very charming and outgoing. My mother was a traditional, perfect homemaker from the South. I would listen to my mother say to my sister, you want to get good grades. You want to make your teacher happy, right? And I remember watching my sister, oh, yes, I definitely. You don't want your teacher to be upset at you. And no,
And what
I
did
don't want my
you
teacher to
say?
be upset. And I remember listening to this conversation and thinking, I don't really care what my teacher thinks or if she's happy or sad. And I also understood that saying that was not a great idea. That when I was asked, I should just nod and open my eyes really wide like my sister does and say, yes, no, I don't want my teacher to be mad at me. And admitting to that gets me in trouble for no other reason than because it's not how I'm, quote unquote, supposed to feel. So I learned to lie and manipulate other people's reactions very early, again, not because I was trying to hurt others, but because I was just trying to go unnoticed. Anytime I was honest with someone about the way that I was really feeling, it was always met with judgment and a lot of times anger and frustration. So I learned to lie as a protective mechanism. And over time, that developed into just a maladaptive lifestyle strategy.
Never heard that word she just said.
I am one of those kids with that inherent manipulative temperament, which sort of predisposed me to a higher likelihood of being antisocial, but I can't point to any specific trauma. I do know that having a dad in the music business and watching him sort of navigate and be charming, I think I learned very early that I don't really need emotion. I can just do what he does, which is smile and be affable and you get what you want. But I can't speak to a specific environmental cause. I knew from a very young age that I wanted to live in a nice house and I wanted to have a relationship and I wanted to have a family, but I also understood that the only way for me to get those things would be to interact pro-socially with other people. It is beneficial to me to act pro-socially. So I didn't, my childhood was spent masking. I was just trying to survive. But over time, it became really exhausting. And what I try to remind people who are resistant to the idea of helping sociopaths, I try to remind them, these people at one point were all children. Wouldn't you want to help a child? And of course, the answer is always yes.
I thought it was going to be no.
Do you have a property that you're interested in?
Oh my God.
Constructive behavior typically elicits a dopamine release that I don't get. So doing something quote unquote kind, I don't feel that attaboy, that pride. It's more matter of fact. There was someone in the grocery store who didn't have the money to pay for their groceries. So I paid for the groceries for this person behind me. And then I left the store. I wasn't doing it because I wanted any credit, or this is a problem that needs to be solved, so I'm going to solve it for this person. But I don't get that hit of, wow, what a good person I am. That was a nice thing to do. But I do get it from something destructive. I get this jolt of feeling that sort of snaps me out of my pressure. In much the same way that someone who has obsessive compulsive disorder, they can't tell you why washing their hands 8 times or doing a series of rituals makes them feel less anxiety. It just does. And that was similar to what I was experiencing as a child. When I was a kid, I was at a sleepover and I decided to walk home in the middle of the night, which I understand is not a typical choice. And on that walk home, there was someone who had left their garage open in my neighborhood. And I went into the garage and I actually got in the car that was in the garage. And I remember feeling so much peace. It was existing in a world where I knew I wasn't supposed to exist. It really neutralized the pressure that I had been feeling that day. As I got older, breaking into homes was my sort of go-to for neutralizing the pressure that I would feel. And I never took anything. And I never did anything destructive within the home. It didn't matter to me whether it was a huge house, small house, an occupied house. I started to lean more toward houses that weren't occupied for
Imagine
obvious
if she's
reasons.
still doing that.
But
I could not
I found
imagine.
some regular places that I liked and I felt that I
Is that
could
supposed to
get
be
in
her?
and out of safely.
Is that supposed to be her?
I would just sit in the silence and I could feel all the pressure going away and all of the apathy flooding in, which is not, I don't believe that's normal. I think that when most neurotypical people find themselves in a house where they're not supposed to be, they're going to be anxious about it. Their heart's going to be racing. It was the
But
exact
she
opposite
didn't.
for me. And what I came to realize is this is how I want to feel. I don't care. I don't care. And it's okay. It's okay to feel apathetic. It's okay to just have no emotion, to just sort of float. And what I found was that these regular acts of disciplined deviance helped prevent more spontaneous acts. And that was always a concern for me, particularly after I had stabbed the little girl in my class. If I waited too long, there was a possibility that I might not lose control, but resort to something more extreme. And I never wanted to be at the mercy of these compulsions. So as I got older, I started to engage in them almost like a prescription. I would do it whether I felt like it or not, just to keep the pressure at a manageable space so there wouldn't be any spikes. I did this for years. I mean, I like to joke that some people microdose mushrooms, whereas I like to microdose mischief.
You also stole cars. Was that the same general feeling?
Yes, it was exactly the same.
She stole cars. She broke into a house.
Damage, or there was never any like super destructive driving or anything like that. It was existing someplace I wasn't supposed to exist, and I figured I was dancing a fine line of was it wrong, in the sense that everyone whose cars I took, I engaged with in some way, and they were usually inebriated. So in the back of my head, I felt like for some reason I got pulled over or busted for this.
But she wasn't scared.
Logical explanation. I have the guy's keys. He gave them to me. I don't understand what the problem is. Over time, I realized that doing that required a very specific set of circumstances. It required interacting with people to get the keys, and it was too much work. I just wanted to be able to get my hit, so to speak, without having to go through, without having to go to a party, without having to time it. It was a lot more work. It wasn't a moral choice. It was a selfish choice. I remember thinking, my luck will run out. If I continue to do this, if I escalate, I will end up in jail, and I don't want to go to jail. There are other things that I want to do.
The diagnosis. So I wonder when she found out. Maybe when she was an adult?
Very much as if I was floating in outer space. It was just this abyss, and I didn't know how far my lack of emotion would take me. And also because I saw sociopathy associated with monsters. There was a long time where I remember thinking So is this just what happens? Like, I don't feel like a monster, but am I going to wake up one day and suddenly want to kill people? It was scary. I was really relieved when I got the diagnosis, which is not something I think a neurotypical person would experience. But when I've spoken to others like me recently, I found that with them it was the same. I was relieved to get this diagnosis. I was relieved to see myself in your story, because I've always felt that there was something off, and now I had a name for it. And I also knew that I wasn't alone. There were at least enough people out there like me to justify a psychological disorder. Towards maybe the end of college, I had a conversation with my dad where I came very clean about the way that I was not feeling and the things that I was doing. And it was his suggestion that I see a therapist who did a clinical assessment on me, and then I was given the PCL. And that the score of that PCL is what determined the actual diagnosis. The PCL is the psychopathic checklist revised. It's the gold standard testing for psychopathy. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. It's the psychological Bible, so to speak. It's what clinicians use for most diagnoses, and it's what insurance companies use in terms of coding and how to pay for the treatment. In order to diagnose someone with antisocial personality disorder,
I don't know what she meant by that.
And this is someone whose behavior is the huge driving force. You're going to see a lot of impulse control issues. They don't really respond to punishment or correction at all. It's the same behavior over and over again. In order to diagnose someone as a sociopath or a psychopath, you cannot use the DSM. For that, you have to use the PCL. So although these disorders have a tremendous amount of overlap and are roughly the same,
but they're not,
different, and that they require different measures for diagnosis. If something isn't in the DSM, that means it doesn't exist. When that's not true, there are many disorders that aren't in the DSM because they need a more complex measure to test. I'm pretty sure sex addiction isn't in the DSM. Looking at the behavioral markers for sociopathy and thinking, who says all sociopaths act like this? Who says that you're saying that all sociopaths are irresponsible?
Okay, let's react to... I want to see this one.
What?
Okay, let's react to
Wood.
this.
Can I say I'm Dr. Juliet Wood?
Yeah.
Yes, my mother's ghost will come back if I don't say that. Hello, I am Dr. Juliet Wood, and this is Folklore Support.
This is about a historian.
First question.
About
from
history.
How did unicorns go from being thought of as dangerous beasts of the wilderness to being possibly the most stereotypical cutesy thing for little girls in modern Western culture? Initially, the unicorn was thought of as a real exotic beast. The Greeks and the Romans really thought it existed at the edge of the world. It was fast, it was vicious, it never really got together with other creatures except when it was mating, but it defended its young. By the medieval period, it becomes associated with a Christ symbol, the lady and the unicorn. The unicorn goes to the Virgin, puts its head in her lap, and the hunters can capture it. And it kind of stays this way for a very long time. It appears really in the 1990s as a kind of popular culture thing. In the 1930s, J.D. Rockefeller gave beautiful unicorn tapestries, famous unicorn tapestries, to a museum in New York, the Cloisters Museum. So you're beginning already to get the unicorn seen as something popular, something modern, rather than a medieval or classical image. It becomes a fantasy creature. A couple of very famous fantasies written about the unicorn in the 1960s. Other fantasy writers take it up, and suddenly you begin to get it merchandised. This, for example, which is a little box with a unicorn on it, a little papier-mâché box, which you could buy at any craft fair. Pink ones abound because
Oh,
of the
little-
little
My
girls
Little
and the My
Pony.
Little Pony. What you see here is how folklore works. It's very dynamic. You have something which starts off as speculation about a real creature, does it exist, becomes a medieval image, a Christian image associated with
I didn't even
art
think
and
about
with
the
sort of
medieval thing.
explanations. It becomes
that's
a
true,
modern artistic image
ooh.
in the tapestries. It becomes written in fantasy, and it kind of suddenly explodes outwards. And you get all these beautiful unicorns, not only little girls. Keep in mind that they're also an important pride symbol as well. They become something which all kinds of groups can find meaning in, meaning which was not there to begin with, but which in a sense is possible in this kind of wonderful creature. The next question is from Dr. Bushka. Why are there so many
Bushka.
stories across time and
I like that,
cultures
Bushka.
about mysterious little people? Miniaturization
Bushka.
of sort of folklore
Where's that
beings
from?
is actually something
Bushka.
that has occurred more
I
recently.
feel like I've heard that name
than
somewhere.
has occurred in the past.
Bushka.
You can see this with fairies kind of shrinking, leprechauns shrinking. Now, I suppose one of the things that if they're sort of tiny creatures, you kind of don't see them easily, so they can kind of come out and jump at you. The thing that comes to mind is in one of Guillermo del Toro's films, he had something called the Tooth Fairy, which was so cute until it
That
got you
doesn't
and ate
look-
your bones from the inside out. And I think he really captured the cuteness and the horror of these small creatures. Jeswar asks, where does the idea for magic wands come from? Wands have
You're
often
a
been
Harry.
associated with symbols of
You're a
power.
Harry.
Kings
You're a
carried them,
wizard,
magicians
Harry.
carried them, and they
What's
were very
your name?
large. They
Harry.
really said,
Harry
"Here I am, and I'm
Potter."
very, very important. You get in the Middle Ages, you will often see Merlin carrying a long
Oh,
wand.
from
But
Harry
as
Potter?
magic sort of comes into
I
its
remember
own
that
much
from the
later
game
on,
Merlin. Is
particularly
that
when
from
you
Harry
begin to
Potter?
get sort of the stage magicians.
Ah.
The wands become too big to carry around, and therefore they become much smaller. Once you have a smaller wand, the sense of sort of calling up the magic sort of occurs. So, you're facing a bubbling cauldron, and you bring out whatever it is in the cauldron that you want to bring out. You're facing an enemy, and you kind of zap them with the wand. And that's kind of carried back over into contemporary fantasy, which often involves fairies with small wands, or children, again, who would look a bit silly with these great big things. The next question, Tap26. Are memes technically internet folklore? That's exactly what they are. They're something that really has been created by the internet. So rather than going from person to person, they will go from website to website.
What?
And that basically is how internet folklore works. The next question comes from the
Zombie.
Wolf.
So it's going to talk
Seriously,
about.
though, did any one of you
Oh.
ever find razor blades in your Halloween candy? Well, I never have. This is part of the sort of folklore that surrounds Halloween. And it's also part of the stranger danger that surrounds Halloween. The idea that here are all these sort of innocent sort of neighborhood children going from house to house, and you get one person who hates Halloween or hates children and therefore tries to kill them. Undoubtedly, children may very well get sick on some of the things they eat at Halloween, but that's probably not because anyone's deliberately poisoning them. What it does reflect is this interaction of social situations. So the Halloween candy, the poisoned Halloween candy, is a kind of
Well, my
not so
parents,
much
I
a
remember they
bogeyman
would
for children.
check
I
the
think it's more a
candy, and if
bogeyman for
the
adults,
candy
quite
was
frankly,
open,
the
of course
fear
you can't open that
something
because
is
you
going
don't
to
know
happen to
if
their
they were
children
to do
when they're off
something.
doing something innocent. Starry Doyo, are mermaids and sirens different, or am I stupid? Well, you're not stupid. Sirens initially were voiced, and they were seen as birds,
Oh.
vulturous birds with women's heads. And what
What?
they would do is they would stand on a cliff and sing
I didn't even hear
and
about
lure
that
the sailors
before.
into the water and to their death. They represent the threats and the dangers of travel and the sea. Now, Ulysses had himself tied to the mast and stopped his men's ears with
Oh,
wax.
God.
And because of this, the sirens were so frustrated that they drowned themselves into the sea, where they acquired fishtails and become mermaids. Mermaids also stick their heads above the waves and sing, trying to lure the sailors to their death, basically. But in the Middle Ages, mermaids were also very often associated with sinfulness, particularly the sinfulness associated with women, the way they sort of tempted men to do things they shouldn't. But then again, by the time you get to the 19th century, you have really wonderfully good mermaids, and by the time you get to Disney,
So what
you have
happened
a
there?
mermaid
Why
who
were
is,
they
a feisty
wanting to
adolescent and very,
drown?
very different from anything
What's the
that either
history on
Greeks or
that
the
part?
medieval world thought of. This question is from Veer03255. Why are vampire stories always tied with werewolves? Both vampires and werewolves are sort of what anthropologists call liminal beings. In other words, they exist between life and death. Human beings who don't quite make it past death. So the idea that sort of a thing would come out of the grave which looked, vaguely human, you find particularly in Slavic countries. Now, with werewolves, wolves have always been outsiders in society. They're dangerous. They're the sort of dangerous dog.
Yeah.
So also
they look like dogs and want to pet them, but
in that sometimes
no.
they are
And
cursed
what's the other one?
of something that
Coyotes
is done, not
too.
necessarily by the
They look
werewolf
like a
himself
dog,
or herself,
but
by the
they
family.
won't act
They
like
kind of
one.
can't
They're gonna
die.
be like, "Ooh,
They
your
get
dinner.
sort of stuck
You're my
in the middle.
lunch."
Neither vampire nor werewolf really actively becomes a vampire or a werewolf. So you get this notion of those things which are beyond human control. And it's certainly something which I think it's safe to say all cultures fear. We're afraid of the dark. We're afraid of the nightmare world. And these two characters represent it. The next question is from Alina Rain. What is the real story behind the Mothman legend? Anyone here familiar with its origin? The Mothman was a humanoid creature with wings and red eyes. That was
What in the
seen
world?
In a small West Virginia town in the 1960s. Basically, you had two couples driving along, and they were passing a disused, derelict World War II munitions plant. And they saw this tall, thin creature with these great big wings.
Oh
Neither
no,
of them
that doesn't
car
look
around
like
to
a good
leave,
energy.
and
It
they
looks
said
very
followed
bad.
them. It got picked up by the national paper. Some few years later, two paranormal specialists came to the
Oh,
town,
is it bad? Is
wrote
it bad?
up the story, called it Mothman, and started connecting it with sort of events. Not long after the people had seen this, a local bridge collapsed with the loss of life. And it was put forward that the Mothman appeared to warn people about what would happen. And when the film was made, it really pushed this idea of the Mothman as a portent. So very unusually, a character which was supposedly scared people, which professional paranormal writers turned into a monstrous present, has become a real local celebrity. This question comes from
So was it a
Terminal
bad
Reddit.
one?
What were the Cottingley Fairy photographs and what was so mysterious about them? The Cottingley Fairy photographs were a series of photographs that appeared at the beginning of the 20th century. They were taken by two girls in Yorkshire who claimed they took pictures of fairies. And they were taken up by Arthur Conan Doyle, who believed in fairies. Eventually, they were proved to be fakes. And the girls, once they were grown up, actually admitted to this. If you look at them now, it's kind of difficult to believe that anybody thought they were anything else. What the girls did is they cut out pictures out of a picture book, stuck pins in them, and stuck them in the ground. One of the girls is standing behind them and the fairies are in front. And it was pointed out that, they're fairies, but why have they got 1920s hairstyles and various things? But so strong was the authority of Arthur Conan Doyle that people just kept saying, no, they must be real, they must be real. they must be
Maybe.
real. The next question is from Jen Enthusiast, who asks, what the is a Wendigo? It's a very, very nasty monster.
A bad one.
It comes from First Nations. It's cannibalistic. It haunts the edges and kind of invades places. It was first sort of identified and talked about in the 19th century when various people became interested in the stories of the First Nations in America. It's now escaped. It now belongs to the sort of general horror fantasy. But originally, it was a much more specific thing, a representative of the fears of not being able to survive the winter, fear of what might happen if you kind of starved to death and didn't have a right burial and didn't have the right rituals to get you into the afterlife. Heartstopper asks, is Dracula really inspired by Vlad the Impaler? The novel Dracula is quite a complex novel. It isn't based on Vlad the Impaler so much. Vlad the Impaler was never thought to be a vampire. In fact, he's a national hero in Romania because he repulsed the Turks. He just seemed a kind of good backstory to this character. So Dracula doesn't come out of nowhere. He becomes
I didn't think it was true until I saw one of the
or more
90 Day
complex
shows talk
remaining
about it, and he
inheritance.
took
Bram Stoker's
the
story
girl
appeared
there
just
that
at
ended
the
up
end of the
being like,
19th century. There had already been
I
several
don't know what
vampire
season it
stories.
was, but it
Most
was
of
a
those
couple of years
vampire
ago,
stories
and it's actually
initially
real because there's
were
a
based on
castle
Lord
and
Byron,
everything.
which is why you get the glamorous vampire in the dark clothes.
So
and
there
all the
was a
women fall over
vampire?
in love with him.
There
Stoker
was a
decided he
real
wanted to
vampire?
change this a little bit. So he puts his character in a much more exotic area, which then he reworked into what has got to be the seminal vampire novel ever written. The next question from Smythe70, Red Rover, anyone? Well, I think this depends on whether anybody has played Red Rover, a game that I played when I was at school. And basically you had two opposing groups and you called someone over. They had to run across and crash through the group. I
What?
don't quite understand why it's now become unpopular, possibly because it's regarded as aggressive or dangerous. But I have to say, it was actually quite a lot of fun to play because you sort of, when you were called, you kind of looked down the line and either found the person you liked least or thought was the weakest and charged for them, which may be revealing something about my background and my childhood that people might not want to know. This question is from Cora. Can you explain the differences between a Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, and Abominable Snowman? Yeti and the Abominable Snowman come from snowy regions. They're associated with Tibet, so they're white. Sasquatch and Bigfoot come mostly from North
But
America.
why is the
They're
Bigfoot one
hairy and
always
dark
a
because
not
they
good
live in the
quality
forest.
photo?
All four of them are
I would
actually
like
quite
someone to
similar
take
in
a
that they
picture of it and not
represent
have the
creatures
photo
who live
blurry
in the
of
margins.
Bigfoot.
What was interesting about them when they were first discovered or first identified is that they were often seen as the missing link. This was a time when it was thought that Homo sapiens descended from the apes and somewhere there was a missing link and this was it. We've completely changed our attitude and they've become a sort of independent monsters. People go hunting for these things and they find footprints and they find all sorts of things, none of which really ever is proved to exist, which is very nice because it means they can still go hunting them. Caffarelli asks, when and how did fairies shrink? Victorians shrunk the fairies. Fairies initially were as large as human beings. Sometimes they were larger, they were more beautiful than human beings as well. But during the Victorian period, interesting.
They
things
got
happened to
superpowers
fairies.
during that time, and
Victorians were
now
very interested
what
in
happened to the
natural
powers?
world. They were very interested in insects. And there's something about the insect, the firefly and the dragonfly. They were also interested in sort of pretty fantasy, ballet, for example. So the fairies suddenly acquire ballet skirts. So you get this kind of diminutization of these fairies simply because the Victorians are sort of interested in them. And you also get what can only be described as an explosion of fairy art. There are a number of artists who really specialized in this. And there are anything from the sort of pretty fairies in Victorian fairy books to one particular artist where the fairies look really like something out of a fever dream. But
Imagine if
as
that's
far
true,
as
because I don't
Scots
know,
and
but if it
Irish
is,
are concerned, fairies are still large. The next question comes from Pinchy Isaac. Who invented zombies, man? The zombie comes out of the Caribbean culture, which sort of synthesized stories and traditions from West Africa, which is where most of the slaves came from. So they were a slave tradition in that the zombie was seen as a corpse who couldn't rest or a person who couldn't really
What?
die, who was enslaved literally by a boka, who is a black magician associated with voodoo. So there's a lot of colonialism here and a lot of very negative attitude towards beliefs which were being syncretized and reworked in the impossible situation of slavery. But it really kind of comes to the fore when the United States begins to interfere in Haiti. And there's a book written, The Magic Island, which is very negative in its view. And it sees the Haitians, and it extends it to other Caribbean peoples, as basically very backwards. Ex-slaves descended from these West African cultures and really in need of civilizing. The idea of these sort of voodoo cultures is that you are possessed in a positive way by these sort of ancestral beings. And the zombie is a kind of twisting by these sort of evil priests, these bokas, who literally enslave these characters. Very negative stereotype of a culture which is just coming out of slavery on these islands. So you kind of get this going from a racist stereotype to an understanding of these cultures and how they function, to this notion of, well, maybe we can explain it scientifically. This question is from Cora. How has the legend of the Loch Ness Monster evolved over time? The Loch Ness Monster, or Nessie, as he is affectionately called, is supposed to live in Loch Ness. He was first observed in the medieval period by one of the most famous of the Scottish saints. It's included in his biography, a biography written by a fellow monk who wrote this up very seriously. The saint had forgotten his book on one side of the loch, and he asked one of his young acolytes to swim across the loch and get it. He got it and was swimming back. Halfway through the loch, up comes the monster. And basically the saint says, "Don't dare touch him." And the monster, of course, listens to the saint and disappears. You don't hear much about him for a while. And then again in the 1930s, the Loch Ness Monster kind of comes onto the scene and has never less. And people kind of look back to this and say, oh, well, there's always been a monster in Loch Ness. People have seen the monster swimming. It's been said to be seals, logs, strange waves, all sorts of excuses. People have faked the monster. There's a small monster, and you can tell it's a fake because the waves aren't right. And as biologists have said, well, the problem is there probably aren't enough fish in Loch Ness to keep a large creature alive. However, it's also one of these monsters which local people have taken to their hearts. He is a big, or she, or it, however you want to call it, is a big tourist draw. And while the locals sort of say, no, we don't believe in them, we're quite happy for tourists to come and visit us. Ask Europe subreddit. What's your country's version of the Tooth Fairy? Well, as an American, my version of the Tooth Fairy is the Tooth Fairy. But it's a fairly modern reworking of a character who more often is a mouse. I'm not sure whether there's a specific folkloric reason for the mouse, but it's a creature that was often found in the older houses and often had little burrows somewhere and often collected bits and pieces. Obviously, it's going to collect the children's teeth as well. But so often these things are not so much this happens and this happens and this happens, as you look back and think, oh, well, this and this and this is in the environment, and I can put it together in a certain kind of way and have a folk story. The next question is from Daisy Jane 1. Did you all have a rabbit's foot for good luck, usually on a keychain? Rabbit's feet kind of go back quite a long way. Rabbits, because they were prolific, were thought of as very lucky. Nowadays, I think we would sort of sympathize with the bunny and not want a rabbit's foot. So we've substituted it with all kinds of good luck symbols and sort of keychains with something on it because they allow you to find the keys. But I think the practical has sort of been overtaken by the fact that what people...
Okay, let's see what else. Okay, we're gonna be watching something. It's about how it's like to be a woman or a girl in this country. So audio good?
There is
Yeah. Okay.
50% chance she'll face violence.
Oh.
It's 80% likely that it comes from a family member. A 99% chance that the crime goes unpunished. She is 66% likely to be illiterate. She will grow up in one of the worst places on earth to be a woman. All over the world, we see stories of control, violence, poverty, and inequality. But here in Guatemala, if you're a woman, you'll most likely face them all.
Sometimes I'd cry. I'd cry because I was locked up and I couldn't do a thing about it.
Here, girls drop out of school before they can read. They marry and have children while still being children themselves.
Her father accused her of being with her boyfriend and demanded she marry him. She was just 15 years old.
Wait,
They
what?
have children while still being
What did it
children
say?
themselves.
Her father accused her of being with her boyfriend and demanded she marry him. She was just 15 years old.
They have no money, no power, and no way out. And when violence eventually finds them, the system abandons them. But in a country where danger and inequality intersect at every turn, where the odds are stacked so completely against women, how do they find the strength to not only survive, but to start to fight back?
I have just arrived in Guatemala. I'm in Antigua. It's a historic colonial city. It's full of so much history and color and culture. But I'm here to find out what it's like to be a woman in one of the world's worst places to be a woman. I don't feel it yet. I do feel safe here, but Antigua is a tourist city and I'm not a local woman. I have found a lady here in Guatemala called Guadalupe, and she's going to help me connect with a young indigenous lady called Lydia and her family who are specifically going through these issues, but they live in the highlands, which is about a 3-hour drive
The name.
from
I
here
just like
in
it because
Antigua.
I knew somebody,
Okay.
a relative named
Sí.
Guadalupe.
I'm meeting with Guadalupe, my local friend. She's taking me to the home of a local indigenous family who is actively fighting back against the cultural expectations of women in Guatemala by sending her to school. As I leave the safety of Antigua for the highlands, I'm met with towering volcanoes, stunning lakes, and colourful culture.
Oh, that must have
But
been a
behind that beauty,
volcano.
it's by
A
almost
volcano,
every
look at
measure
that.
one of the hardest places in the world to be a woman. Every year, roughly 7.6 women per 100,000 are victims of femicide. That's the 8th
What is that?
highest on Earth. For context, in the United States, that number is around 2.6.
Oh,
And in
jeez.
Afghanistan, it's still estimated to be under 1. For centuries, Guatemala's indigenous majority, mostly Mayan,
Okay.
have been pushed to the edge
I thought it was
by
gonna
colonial
be-
systems that gave land, power, and opportunity to a tiny elite. A civil war followed, lasting 36 years, resulting in more than 200,000 dead, mostly indigenous.
Here, most
And women,
information
right?
is
All
indigenous.
women.
Our roots are very important, and that we do not need to change that in order to succeed in the current world.
Assault on women's bodies was used systematically as a weapon of war, with whole villages being wiped out. Today, 8 out of 10 indigenous families live in poverty. Nearly half of all girls are married before 18. The average years of schooling for an indigenous girl, 1.8. Guatemala's violence, poverty, and historic discrimination makes it perhaps one of the hardest places on earth to be a woman.
So we've been driving for quite a while, like up and down this mountain basically, and I think that's one of the challenges that the girls face, is that the transportation to the school is also really hard. Okay, so we've arrived in this very
And imagine
small
if they
town
don't have
up
a
in
vehicle,
the
they're
mountains.
probably
I'm gonna meet a good
walking all the way over there where she was earlier, and then walking all the way over there because probably the school's over there.
girl here and just see what life is like for her here in Guatemala.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? She is 15.
15.
So yeah, this is the family.
Awesome. They're also speaking what's chula
Kachikil. I can never remember, but they're speaking Kachikil, which is their local indigenous language, and then you're translating, and then you're translating to Spanish. So we have like a translation train going on.
I had the opportunity to
I
ask
wonder if
Lydia what being a woman
how
in
many
Guatemala
people still speak that language, because I remember when I was watching Will Smith's documentary, which you guys should go see. It's very interesting and I like it. And there's not a lot of people that were speaking, I don't remember the language name, but there was not a lot. And there was a lady recording him and saying, what does this mean? And then he said it, and what is this, and blah blah blah. And I like that she recorded it, because who knows if anybody in the next generation will ever say these words in that language. Imagine if we could have had the Aztecs or the Mayans language recorded, because we only got, the stuff that's in the cave, unless somebody does a reincarnation, because I still remember this lady reincarnated and she said she was an Egyptian queen, and she knew exactly where it was and she got it correct. I'm like, we need another person to reincarnate. Yeah, really good English. Okay, there we go.
Mala means to her.
Being a woman is having a defined role in society, also having the ability to raise her voice and speak her mind.
In villages like this, girls are expected to help at home, look after younger siblings, and marry young. School usually ends once they're needed in the house.
But what if they don't want to do
Sending
that?
a girl to school for 7 years means 7 years the family loses her help. That's 7 years without an income they rely on. When you're living in poverty, that's not an easy choice to make. But Lydia's parents are making it anyway, even though it goes against tradition and the machismo culture of Guatemala.
Oh, I know what that is.
Emphasis on power and dominance in males, confining women and girls to domestic roles. In this community, that's a big and brave decision to make.
Oh, good. Oh, come on. Why a commercial? There we go.
So that's the traditional clothing of indigenous people.
Is she gonna wear it? Are they gonna let her wear it?
Especially people who are descendants from the Mayas.
What's your favorite subject?
It's English.
Oh, darn it.
Land power. Kachikil. I can never remember, but they're speaking and the
To be able to help. So that's the traditional clothing of indigenous people in Guatemala, especially people who are descendants from the Mayas.
Oh, mine is Aztecs. Yo estoy indigenous mexicana. That's what my DNA says. Indigenous. Proud to be.
What's your favorite subject?
It's English.
English. Sí. What made you want to go to school?
Poder ayudar a mis hermanitos y también a mi familia. To be able to help her family, support them, especially her little brothers.
As a man in Guatemala and a dad, how does it make you feel that your daughter is getting an education?
Very happy and very proud of his daughter that she can continue her education, but he feels proud and he feels happy. But they're both in agreement that they both want that for her. It's usually the boys who get that opportunity of continue their studies in the community.
So they don't
and
want,
that's
they don't
what
expect
women
the
from
women to do.
their dream.
But I
to
am
get an
curious about how Lydia
education
feels about
or
her
do what they
statistics,
dream
how
to
her
be
country
doing.
is one of the hardest places on earth to be a woman.
It makes her feel angry because women are capable.
Yeah, we are.
They set their minds to. They have all the capabilities and everything.
Yeah, we
to
are.
do it. So it makes her feel angry.
We are
Getting ready
capable
for
of doing
school for
anything
Lydia
that a
looks
man can
similar
do.
to everywhere else in the
Anything.
world.
If a
Long
guy
walks
can do
and
that, we can do it
food,
too.
some lunch money, a quick kiss goodbye, and off to the bus. But while it's the same as what you or I would experience, it's not the same as the rest of the country. Lydia's involvement in the school makes her an outlier, one of the lucky ones. For most girls, this doesn't happen. It's good because I feel like the dad is also very supportive of her, getting her education and things like that, which is obviously the key to getting an education here as a woman. Not the key, but obviously a very important part. Flor, a local Indigenous woman and mentor from Lydia's school, is here. Support at home helps educate parents on how to best support a teenage daughter, something that's hard enough.
Oh,
anywhere in
like
the world,
shake.
but
I remember
especially
my
hard
acting
in a
teacher
place
would
where
tell
women
us
are
to do
taught to be
that.
silent.
Shake, 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 shake. Get everything loose. Okay, let's get it. She would be like that.
Activities that adapt to the family's necessities regarding their emotions, or also activities that they need to do together.
The school not only educates Lydia, but provides much needed support to her family and community through these home visits. Lydia actually has to go to school today. So I'm going to head to school with her, how she normally gets there, which is public transport, and it actually is quite a long way away. Part of the deal is that it's like a mutual agreement where the school that Lydia goes to covers her education, covers like nutritious and healthy meals, and covers all of those things. But the commitment that comes from the parent side is to get her there via public transport, or however they get there, whether that's a neighbor or just basically the transportation to the school in order to receive her educations. But we're going to head there now. We're going to go the way she normally goes there, on a bus. Adios, Papa, Mama. We're going to school today.
Muy bonito.
Oh, muy bonito. So I have very little Spanish, even less Cachacal, and they have very small bit of English too. So this is a experience where language isn't
Where's
really
the
going
translator? She's not
be a
coming with
factor.
them?
We're just going to spend some time together getting on.
I know they just showed the lady that was speaking English to help her translate. And I know she's going to school, but hopefully she comes to her because she knows a little Spanish, she knows a little English, and it would be nice for her to translate. Unless she has her phone, but didn't the lady come there to translate and help her? Because she did say, I have somebody here that will be translate, but then I don't know.
On this bus.
Wait, the bus.
Wait the bus, see. Okay, we got a bus. Vámonos, bus.
I wonder if it's hot in that country.
After a long bus ride to the main city of Solola, we're searching for our second bus to get to Lydia's school. It's a bit of a trek to get to school. Lots of walking.
Oh, another bus.
Oh, we made it. Took a long time.
I haven't been to the grocery store in months.
She probably had to ask permission of the school if she could record in there because she's gonna record. Imagine she's just there and like, hey, I'm recording for, I don't know her name right here. If she said it, I already forgot. I'm recording for her and what is it like to be a girl, a woman in this country and the world's hardest place to be a woman. That's what the title is, Inside the World's Hardest Place to Be a Woman.
How did you feel the first time you came to this school?
Very happy.
She likes
at Lydia's
education.
School. This is where she comes. It's a special school. It's not just any school. It's a school for Indigenous women. So very special. This is the Maya Impact School. It's Central America's first secondary school run by and for Indigenous women. Most of the teachers and staff here are Indigenous women themselves, which is just incredible. This place is set up to help local Indigenous girls in the highland areas whose parents are ready to change the culture and let their girls go to school over early marriage or having children. With so many powerful and brave women inside these school gates, I'm determined to hear from as many as I can.
Nice to meet you. You can sit next to me. Buenos dias.
Delia. I am 60 years old. This is library science.
Yeah.
Science.
Science?
She says she's nervous.
No! Stop it!
The way Australian people say it, they go, no, no,
has been here
no,
pretty much everything.
no.
What's your name?
Vilma.
Bilma. Nice to meet you.
I sound like a cat when I go.
We are
No.
more than a school. We are an accelerator of women's leadership.
Accelerator.
When the girl pioneers is selected, it's not just the girl, it's the entire family, because we live in a society with the machismo. It's very deep in our community.
En mi comunidad no
So not
Oh,
only
she
both
did came.
girls in
Okay.
the community can continue their studies. One of the reasons is that there's a lot of machismo, and that doesn't allow the girls to fulfill their dreams, and that closes a lot of doors, especially for the girls.
En las
The
comunidades
challenges are that a lot of the community lives under machismo. That has made a lot of the people believe that women should not continue studying, that the role is to have kids and raise them.
En las posibilidades está que trabajen.
So if girls don't continue their studies, some of the things that may happen to them is
What?
that they go into child labor because they have to start working at an early age to support their families.
Bueno,
yo creo que it still persists the idea that girls should not have access to education and continue their studies.
We need to work very closely to the family, to
Yeah.
the father specifically. And in our
Oh.
model, we engaged both mother and the father to create that change in their mind.
Yo considero que las personas son
There's a lot of racism because there's a lot of power positions. Like if you're not born as an indigenous person, you have more access to other opportunities. Other people who have more opportunities feel a bit of superiority.
Lack of food, lack of education, lack of access to water, extreme
Water.
poverty and malnutrition. All of
Water.
these things contribute to putting women in danger all over the world. But
Danger.
Guatemala, if you're born here, you're likely to experience all of the above, including one of the highest rates of femicide on Earth. When you consider this is combined with systemic racism for Indigenous women,
I wonder
some
what
who
that said.
experience all of the above, including one of the highest rates of
What did that
femicide
say?
on Earth. When you consider
Indigenous women, guardians,
with systemic racism,
oh darn it, I wanted to read that. I'm going back.
if you're born here, you're likely to experience all of the above,
Trying to read
including
that.
one of the highest rates of femicide on Earth. When you consider this
The land, culture, and wisdom, recognize them is to justice and
is combined
diversity.
with systemic racism for Indigenous women. Sometimes it's not just about the physical threat, but also that you don't have the opportunity to ever break out of the cycle you were born into. So I'm out in the garden here and I can just see that they have this mural. It's just a story of these girls' lives, and you can see that they start here in the village and there's corn, small houses with the beautiful volcanoes in the background, but it moves into books and school. She's getting educated. Basically, here at the end, they are the things that they've dreamt of being.
Oh, I
leaders.
like
They're
that.
strong
They're
women,
gonna
they
get
are
it. They're gonna
fulfilling
get it.
the
I'm
things
all
that
about
they
women
wanted to be
empowerment.
since they
Yeah.
were back at the start of their journey. I've been all around the world. Women,
Oh, I remember
girls,
watching that
men, boys,
one.
everyone kind of want the same thing. From the biggest slum in Kenya to here where it's one of the worst places in the entire world to be a woman. Everyone wants people to understand them and believe in them and to treat them as equals. So I often get asked how I do the things that I do and how I get into the situations that I
Yeah.
get into and how
I was just wondering, like, how does she do this? Because she does content. I just know her because one day she just popped up on my homepage on YouTube. But how did she... Let's see what she says. Maybe she's gonna say she messaged them, but still, how?
Meet the people that I do, and honestly, I genuinely believe that it all starts with just saying hello to people. I genuinely believe I've had some of the best experiences traveling just by me saying hello, and if you may have noticed, that's why I've started this brand. That's why I've started and to choose to just say hello. Can you tell me a little bit about why girls suffer with malnutrition here?
Las niñas cuando tienen so we know that the girls are suffering from malnutrition, and it's a chronic malnutrition because they suffer deficiencies in calcium.
Why are they not getting more food and more...
Is the economical situation. The children are born already with malnutrition.
What?
Because pregnant women need more nutrients and they cannot get them while being pregnant, so then the kid is born with
I did not know that!
In 2019, the school won something called the Zayed Sustainability Prize, which is an international award that funds projects improving lives around the world through impactful projects like education, energy, and food security. They use the money to build this greenhouse and sustainable garden, and teaches them how to grow food for their families at home. In a country where almost half of all children are malnourished, regular nutritional meals at school will help life expectancy and cognitive ability for the students, creating an impact for every girl who attends this school now and in the future, and their families. The prize has provided incredible outcomes to so many worthy projects around the world.
H2O.
You can find them below for you to check out, and maybe you know a project that could use the help, just like Maya received.
Bueno, el impacto que he visto. So part of the process that has changed with having the garden, even the soil that is being used, it comes from compost. Any vegetable that we are producing is healthier.
I remember in 6th grade learning about something like gardening, and I remember you can get a cow's poo and use it as a fertilizer. Helps the environment, you know? But I never done that. I think I would be too grossed out. And I didn't grow up in the farm, but I know I used to grow up going because I have a relative that has a farm. But I'm not the one living in it. That's a whole different thing.
Porque a veces nos pregunta por qué todos los días. So when the girls come to the school or before they enter, we measure their weight and their height. She does see that there's a very low weight and a very low height. That means that they're growing, but they need extra nutrients. And every day the girls receive fruits, vegetables, and proteins that help them.
In the Guatemala context, we faced an indigenous community 4 forms of discrimination.
Like what?
Living in a rural area, being indigenous women, living in poverty conditions, and female.
Just being a female.
One thing that she sees with her sister is that, for example, she goes to work, she comes back home, she has to cook. They usually say that women should be in the kitchen.
I've just come here because I feel like I'm just feeling a little bit overwhelmed and a little bit conflicted about what I'm hearing from the women today. From where I'm from in Australia, 1 out of 4 women will experience violence or assault from an intimate partner from the age of 15 onwards. This is a global issue. This isn't something that we can just look at this and say, look how bad it is in Guatemala and move on.
Se tiene la perspectiva de que las mujeres...
The conception or the belief that women cannot study past 6th grade.
What? After 6th grade, they cannot go anywhere because then they probably have to do work. Physical hard labor.
I know that you know what I'm talking about. That feeling where you just never feel 100% safe, no matter where you go or what you do.
La diferencia de la vida de una mujer.
The belief that men have more opportunities, they tend to say a phrase that it's a woman is a man's territory. So
it's just so much worse here, which is why it makes
I hope it changed. I hope it improves it better.
The women here are inspiring to everyone. To be constantly told that you're not worthy and keep showing up is one thing. I I feel like this is something women everywhere need to endure in some capacity, but to go beyond just showing up and actively working towards a future for not just yourself, but future generations.
Yes!
Know that doing this risks issues in their communities, that it risks the reputations of their families, it risks danger, not just in unwanted attention, but in a place where physical violence against women
We gotta stick
is so
together,
much
us
higher than
women.
everywhere else, and where perpetrators of this know they won't be brought to justice. It makes this even more powerful. It's humbling to experience in person, and it's not something I'll forget anytime soon.
It's just like heavy, isn't it? Like I feel like a lot of the things that like I've just never had to think of myself, and it was like a lot because I'm very privileged to not have to think about, you know, my brother and potentially getting things that I don't have or things that society wouldn't let me have in a way.
Yeah.
It was heavy.
Do you think that the equality for women in Guatemala, do you think it's happening fast enough?
We face a systemic discrimination, and that is years to change that in the next generations. Now our mission is to the next generations have more
To stop it and improve
great
it better,
future.
and
I
all the
have a
women
lot
and
of
girls
hope
stick together,
about
because we
I
cannot let
remember
this
when
happen.
Esther, she went with me in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
She says, I want to be a president of Guatemala. That is her dream. And she inspired a lot of us in Maya Impact School. Yeah.
Good. I feel like I just feel like a lot of girls like I feel like growing up, like we do everything we can to not go to school. I remember like whenever in high school we get like a free period or something like that, like a lot of girls or people from where I'm from, we fake being sick in the morning so that mum can say, stay at home, you don't have to go to school, and we are so happy to miss it and then to come here and see how much you're fighting to go to school.
Thank you.
It's hard to see how much we take for granted sometimes, I think. Sorry, I'm on my period as well, so I'm just like I'm extra emotional. Women are amazing.
Yeah, we are.
So what people should do is to believe in the potential of every person, regardless of their gender.
Women will continue to change the world, not in the way the history books tell it, in the way that actually matters.
Entonces, nada es imposible, todo se puede lograr, y pues una mujer empoderada llega a hacer grandes cosas.
A woman who says no when she means it. A woman who reaches for another woman to lift her up instead of pulling her down.
Pues yo les diría,
Continue fighting. We as women, we're capable of doing anything that we set ourselves to.
A woman who teaches her sons to be advocates for women, not threats to them.
Y haré más mismo.
Us as parents, mom and dad, can support the future of our daughters.
You think it's small? I promise you, it's not. Here in Guatemala, I've met brave, resourceful women who do impossible things with nothing.
Mujer, no eres el problema, tú eres la solución.
I've met men who are strong enough to stand up against a culture that benefits them, to make space for their daughters and wives. I've seen girls proudly embody their cultural identity, even when the system has tried and failed to wipe it out. I've watched daughters teach their mothers that they have a choice, when their whole lives they were told that they don't.
No te dejes vencer por el miedo. Sé fuerte, sé valiente, eres maravilloso.
That things don't have to stay broken just because they always have been. They're not waiting or even asking permission. They're taking back the power, the choice, the life they deserve.
Believe in your potential because you are powerful.
And even when they were born in a place where an act of defiance could be the last act they take. Now it's up to you to make another woman believe in what is possible. To teach our sons and daughters that women are capable.
Yeah,
to
we
be
are.
respected, that they are equal. To inspire others to know that change, it's a choice. Despite all the odds, you can do it. I believe in you, in us, in her.
Yeah. We can do it. All of us women. We can do that. I like that what we just watched there, guys. I'm gonna end the stream here. I know it was not that much. It was just me reacting to YouTube videos. That's fine. Okay, guys, I'm gonna end the stream here. I'm gonna see what to eat for dinner. Maybe some more of my soup that I made yesterday. I know it's not that much because me and my parents have been eating it because they liked the soup that I made. Yeah, so good. So I'm gonna either have that or something else. So yeah. See you guys.